No, we're gonna, Ashley, sorry, we're gonna have Juanita call the roll first. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
It's a long way.
Randy Brockway.
Here?
Lisa Gaynor.
Here.
David Kadama.
Here.
Rachel Morella. Michael O'Brien.
Here.
Arthur Perry.
Present.
Mary Rose Mangia.
Here.
Here?
Call her name and she can say here.
Rachel Morella. Here.
Get the blood.
Right now we can rise for the pledge, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, nobody signed up for public comment, so we're gonna move on to a presentation from Fran Squitz of Riverside Township Assessor. I'd asked her if she could come and just provide some information for the board prior to our tax, our tax levy vote, discussion and vote. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me to come and speak with you tonight about this. Just a little bit about my background. In January, I will be starting my second term as Township Assessor, and I started working in the Township Assessor's office in 2002. I've been a resident in Riverside since 1994. I sent 3 kids through District 96 and District 208, so I'm a big supporter and proponent of our wonderful education system in Riverside. I do want to answer some questions that Mary Rose had emailed to me. And, but I'll start out with just a little bit of information about the property tax cycle. These are the offices that are part of the property tax cycle, and obviously each one has different responsibilities. There's the Cook County Assessor, the Township Assessor, the Cook County Board of Review, the Cook County Clerk, the Cook County Treasurer, and the Illinois Department of Revenue. So each of these offices has something to do with some part of the taxes that we ultimately get and see on our tax bills. Would you like to ask questions as we go? That might be the easiest.
All right, if anybody has any, I guess I had one question right off the
Sure.
bat. Is yours an elected position?
It is.
Okay.
It is. I'm an elected official. And actually, some of my responsibilities are that we do help residents in Riverside Township obtain fair assessments through the appeal process with the Assessor's Office and the Board of Review. We help residents file applications for their exemptions and certificates of error. We track property transfers, and we are statutorily required to process permits from all the villages in our township. So that's some of the things that we do in my office.
Do people in your office actually do the assessments?
We do not. We do not. All the assessing is done at the Cook County Assessor's Office by mass appraisal. And next year is our reassessment in 2014. So in January, there will be representatives that come to my office from the Cook County Assessor's Office, and we'll talk about certain areas that I have concerns of, like areas that have flooded, or maybe some areas of town that have not quite seen come in. So they do look for my input as a local person, where my eyes and ears are right here. So so that's taken into consideration before the mass appraisal occurs. Okay, so to start with your questions, one of your first questions was, what is the commercial residential split for assessed values in North Riverside, which are in Riverside Township, but not in District 96. And this breakdown is not so easily available to me without actually sitting at a map and writing all the PIN numbers and their assessed values. But I did go back to the 2012 equalized assessed values, and the difference between the Riverside Township, all their assessed values that they use, which is all the township, and District 96 equalized assessed values was about $33 million. So that's about the value of the property, and it's going to be pretty close for 2013, maybe about $2 to $3 million less, I think. And I do think that the majority of that difference is residential.
So Fran, can you just clarify, the question was North Riverside, but, excuse me,
Riverside Township includes both North Riverside and Riverside.
Not all of North
But
Riverside.
a portion
A
of it.
portion of it,
So it's
yes.
similar to the District 96 tax and value, we have a portion of North Riverside, but not all of it as well, that comes into us with taxes.
That's correct. We have a portion of North
Which,
Riverside.
can you say generally which portion that is and?
It's the northwest corner, pretty much, just south of 22nd Street.
Yeah.
And it goes, the furthest corner goes to 9th Street.
Okay.
So the
Part of
east
it's
side-
in Proviso Township.
Yes, the other part of North Riverside is in Proviso Township. So there's like a quadrant up there. And then it gets a little messy as it comes down and towards like on 31st Street there. I wasn't quite sure what the boundaries are from the district.
Is that what are you saying, that quadrant over there in the northwest corner, is that basically represented by the 33 million?
Yes.
And the statements that you gave me, that you provided with me, are all of Riverside Township. Is that
Yes.
correct? So
Yes.
that's-
Okay, so
Yeah,
this
sure.
question is simply establishing an amount that we won't be able to consider for taxes.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And it's an estimate, because for 2013, we're going to be looking at that. But like I said, I'm thinking it's going to be about a $2 to $3 million.
So District 94 is split between Proviso and Riverside
Yes.
Township. Okay.
I think the value of the question for me would have been to just get an idea of kind of what the commercial residential split is in this $507 million number. I mean, is it 50-50, is it 80-20 residential to commercial, is it?
You know, I don't have that figure.
You know, I did look at it when I got
Yes.
your questions, because I did get the report, and I believe it's, I forget, it's a class 4, or maybe it's a
Yes.
class 4.
Yes. Class
And
4,
that
class
looked
5.
like, and again, I only have the 2012, and I think it was about 33 million, part of about 200 million.
That sounds about right.
But again, but this says 540, so I guess I have to go back.
So that's based on, the report I gave you, I think that was assessed values though.
Oh,
And this
okay.
is equalized assessed values, so this is after they're equalized.
Okay, so we're basically saying roughly, 30 part of 200 million, 30 million part of, I don't know, let somebody else do the math in their head, but that was basically the number, and that was about, I think it said about 30 for 2012, and 32 million was for shopping centers, I noticed, somewhere around there.
Oh,
Yeah.
so 33 of the 200 was commercial.
You know, as I said, it is, I did,
Sounds like,
yeah, I'll, you know what, I'll send it to you, but that's about,
yeah. Okay.
in fact, I was even gonna drag.
Why, sorry, 33 million out of 200 million?
Yeah, they.
And what's the 200 million?
Total.
The total assessed values of all the properties. Right.
10%
But what is this 507?
This is the equalized assessed value. So when we're assessed, when we're taxed, first the assessed value is established. And then that assessed value, the state multiplier is assigned to that assessed value. So last year's state multiplier was like 2.8.
Okay.
And so that gives us the equalized assessed value. And then ultimately, that's what our tax, the tax rate is applied to the equalized assessed value.
So, I don't know who posed this question, but it looks like one of those questions on the SAT exam that tries to fool everybody. I don't know if I'm any clearer from saying this. And,
The reason why I asked the question was to reconcile the report that I got.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was more for, you know, I did have a report.
but it doesn't help me, I'm sorry.
No, it just reconciles a report that I have.
Oh, she did a breakdown. Was it available?
Yeah, I'm not.
It's just a
putting it
general
on-
idea of the portion.
I'm not putting on you, Fran, I know it's a difficult,
Right.
confusing, and when we start talking about assessed values against equalized
Yeah.
assessed values, even more so.
It does. And some figures are available to me in assessed values and some equalized assessed values.
Yeah, I think the interesting aspect of this question is that we cannot easily get a report that shows just
That's
the
right.
96. That's really, the report I had that, that I wanted to play with the numbers included, more of the RV tax base than ours, and that's the aspect of this
Okay.
question that was a little interesting.
Okay, we'll go
Just
on
to
to
me.
the next question, and what is the rate by fund over which we cannot levy? And now, I did hand out, the Illinois Department of Revenue posed the property tax fund max rate, and it's a 9-page list, and it's very detailed, but just to kind of break it down a little bit, I think these are some of the funds that you would consider non-operating funds, like the IMRF and Social Security, is that correct? So these funds do not have a fund max rate, but they are subject to the property tax extension limitation law. So we're working with two limits here.
And this is the one that's in the statute.
Yes, these are statutes. Mhm. And then this is, the next section of this list is the educational districts for fewer than 500,000 inhabitants. And these are some of the rates that you would use. So the top one is for education. So the maximum rate is like 3.5%. And then this breaks it down into some of the operating funds that you see. I'm not gonna go through this list, I just wanted to give you a general idea, and you could go through that in great detail. And then the bonds don't have limits. So it seems like, based on this list, that that bond and interest levies or debt service are the only funds that are not capped by PTEL. And most of them do not have a fund rate max either. So then most operating funds are also subject to tax rate ceilings, and the aggregate, not including debt service, is ultimately capped by the property tax extension law. So, it's kind of tricky when you're talking about operating funds and non-operating funds.
So these maximum rates are the rate of taxation against the equalized assessed value?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just a flat number?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so you hear so much about the cumulative impact of not levying, yet the models only address operating funds. What is the impact on non-operating funds? Again, debt service is not subject to PTEL. So funds like IMRF and Social Security do not have tax rate ceilings, but are still subject to PTEL. Most operating funds are subject to PTEL and the tax rate ceilings. So you're kind of working with two different rates here.
Well, is that the answer to your question, the cumulative impact? Does that address your question?
No, I don't think
Because
so.
I think the question, I would take the question as the cumulative impact. So if we forego levying for an increase, and that equates to $400,000, that every single year you are absent $400,000. So in 2 years, that's a cumulative effect of $800,000, that you're missing 1.2 million in 3 years, and so forth and so forth. And
Well, you're just missing the rate at which you're taxing. Well, you're taxing the 400,000. You're talking about $400,000 of tax or
400,000 of tax revenue.
Okay.
That you're foregoing.
Yes.
Because you're not getting, so every
Well,
single
but
year,
you're
you
only
won't
getting-
get $400,000.
You're whatever portion of that you're actually allowed to before you hit the cap,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That's what you're-
Exactly. And also, so.
But that is
if
the
you-
base for the cap,
Correct.
right?
I mean, the way I understand.
The next slide, I think, will answer your question. Here, you can use the highest aggregate levy of the previous 3 years in the PTEL formula. So if 1 year you forego $400,000, so let's say the previous year, the levy was $2 million, and in the year that you're abating is $1.5 million, you can use the previous year to then apply to the PTEL formula in the next year. So you could use the highest of the previous 3 years. You don't have to use the lowest year.
Okay. So we're always increasing.
So it might
You'd
not
always
be
take
as
the-
high.
You always take the most recent.
Right. And it
There
might
is
not
an
be as
effect,
high.
but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Right, it doesn't have to be you don't have to use the lowest year. you know, might not be, if you're not taxing the maximum in 1 year, it wouldn't be as big of a loss if you have another year that you still had a higher rate from.
If you did.
If you
had
did.
it,
If,
yeah,
yeah.
which is not our case.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
and you still also have the statutory, both the statutory
Right,
and the veto
exactly.
caps that you may or may not be bumping up against.
Exactly. Yes, yes. So is it possible to levy in any fund and then turn around and abate in the same year? And you've heard that working cash, life safety, building and interest bond fund might provide that opportunity. This will enable you to levy the maximum amount, but not have a cumulative impact for years to come. And yes, this is true. You can levy in the working cash fund and then use that money to pay for debt service. So this will keep your taxing capacity intact.
But you have to, that has to be an active fund,
Exactly.
which ours are not.
Yes.
And you can only abate from the debt service.
Yes. Yes. You can abate from the
Not
debt
from what
service.
they-
No, the district has not levied for debt service in the past 2 years, so it's not really coming out to the state. Okay, over the last few years, our property value is increasing. Is there an estimate for 2013? Our property values have been decreasing. When assessed values decrease, the tax rates increase to support the levies of the taxing bodies. This is a history of Riverside Township assessed values prior to equalization. So we don't have 2013 certified yet, but I expect a small decrease from 2000.
So again, the tax rates increase to support the levies,
Yes.
but if those, because of those statutory caps,
Yeah.
you're limited there as well.
There's only so much we could,
Unless
You
we
go
go
to-
referendum.
Well, and the other thing that's a little odd about this whole formula, just a little hard to get your head around,
It is.
is that
Very
the
hard.
that they're equalized assessed values, so whatever the state, it's not just property values, it's how the state handles the equalization
Yes,
factor.
exactly.
And I don't know, I didn't put together a history of that, have they been
Mhm.
going all of?
The equalization factor has been coming down for the past few years. It was at its highest at 3.3 about 3 years ago, and it's been, last year it was 2.8, so.
So we're at,
But-
so if there's communities that are at 3.3, there's also communities that are like at point something, point 3?
All
something, or-
of Cook County has the same equalization factor.
But there's other places in the others, in other parts of the state that even have a factor less than 1?
Well, in Cook County, we assess residential property at 10%. The rest of the state, it's assessed at 33 and 30%.
Okay.
And that's why we
So
have.
that's why we have to get.
Yeah, I think the equalization factor applies only, is it to all the counties or just Cook?
Just Cook.
It's just to equalize us with the rest of the state.
Right.
Okay, so that's the reason.
For the, for the purpose of a lot of,
For the purpose of some overlapping expenses that we share, that are part of the state or part of different communities that may overlap. Okay, and Randy had asked me for some tax rate history, so I went back to 2000 and found all the tax rate history from 2000. And he also asked for when was the last referendum, and I thought it was 2005, but I think I was mistaken on that. I think the last referendum occurred in 2003, because we have that huge bump there.
Yep.
And then we must have voted for that in 2004. So majority of the years we've had increases. There are a couple of small decreases, but overall, we've had some increasing, right?
That's interesting. Right before that bump up, we had a big drop
Mhm.
on.
I wonder if that has something to do with the assessed values?
It did, because in 2002 we were reassessed, and that's where we really started to see the increase in market values that year. 2002, 2005, and 2008 were reassessment years.
Because you just back into the rate.
Right.
It's just
Yes.
it's a function of,
Yes.
CPI, the CPI over the previous year's levy
Mhm.
divided by whatever the assessed values are.
Right, right.
Or
So-
equalized assessed values.
So 2002 was the first year we really started seeing the increase in market values for many years. It was pretty level prior to that. So that's basically all the information that I have for you. Did you have any other questions?
I thought you were gonna maybe address the whole situation with Costco.
Okay, I wasn't sure, because with the next email, you had said that you were going to take care of Costco next year. But I can talk about it. So.
Oh, we want to take care of it.
Costco will be fully assessed in 2014. So the assessor's office assesses the property as of January 1st. And as of January 1st, it was a vacant building. And
You mean January 1 of
January 1st of
2013?
2013, yes.
It was vacant land
Yes,
or
it was
vacant property?
vacant property. Edward Donovan moved out at that point. And
All right, go ahead.
the company that owns Costco didn't purchase it until March. The demolition began, I think the end of, around June, and it was totally demolished in July. So that property has gone through a couple of different stages as viewed by the assessor's office. And of course, the different owners of that property, there have been 2 different owners in 2013, they started the appeal process right away. It was originally, there are 2 pins to that property, and it was originally assessed at about, I think it was $1.8 million. So then the
As vacant
original
property?
owners.
As vacant property? It was
No,
assessed?
it was, that was with the building. So
Okay.
then, and the appeal process started, and there was a reduction in the first half of the year, and then the Board of Review came back with another reduction. So the Board of Review reduced it to almost $700,000. So that's what it will be assessed at for tax purposes.
For this year?
That number isn't certified yet, but I think it's
For
And I-
2013.
for 2013.
Right, because the impression is that we should levy now to take full advantage of Costco.
It's not gonna have any, Costco's not gonna have any impact on
Till
2013.
2014.
Well, we're already losing some of the money because they appeal, and
Well-
we're dropping from a $1.8 million base to a
Assessment.
700,000.
Right. So which means our EAV is going to reduce.
But
It
that
shifts
doesn't-
more of the cost to the households, to the residential.
Right,
tier as
exactly,
well.
it just shifts.
Yeah, but it shouldn't
For
change
this
our
year.
tax levy,
For this year.
but it shouldn't change our levy this year, because
No.
it's just, they've appealed their assessment and
Right.
they have it in the same year.
Right, exactly.
Now you mentioned that you, I don't know if you got a chance to do this or if the information is available, but get some idea of what the building might be assessed at next year. Is there any thoughts on that?
I don't have any thoughts on it yet, no one has been through the property yet. We are going to be reassessed in January, and I expect that they'll start walking through our town probably in a couple of weeks.
Oh, really, that's?
Yes, they'll start gathering information.
And because is it going to be considered new construction and
Yes.
therefore not really covered under P&L, or?
That's correct. You will be able to assess for the full value. You will be able to use the full value of the assessed value under construction.
And is that property or anything around it covered by any TIF districts or other tax situations that would also come into play?
Not that I'm aware of for real estate purposes. I know that the village has made some deals with them, and I spoke with Sue, who is the finance person at North Riverside, and she said there was nothing that you needed to be concerned about.
Okay.
But I know that this is gonna get complicated. Right now, there is 2 different PIN numbers, but it's all owned by one person or one company. And I think for 2014, we're splitting it up. So I don't have access to that information, but that's how we're going to see the construction.
But it would still be, because the piece in the front could then become
Yes.
with the,
Outlots.
thank you,
the
I couldn't
outlets.
think of the
Yeah.
word. The
Yeah.
outlets will then be
Yes.
owned by whoever buys that property.
You know, I
So
don't know if it's
the
gonna be a
PIN
leasehold agreement, or they're going to purchase them outright, but we are gonna see some splitting going. But,
I know that at one point I saw there were 3 PIN numbers on it, and so now there are 2.
there were 2,
There's 2 now. And then you had mentioned, I did go on the website trying to get an idea of how it had been assessed, and I didn't notice the 700,000.
No, it's not certified yet.
So they don't update the website until after it's certified, so, okay. Well, anyway, thank you for providing that additional information. Very, very.
Thank you.
Can I ask just one other question? Do you know off the top of your head any of the other new construction that would come into 13?
Let's see, 2013.
So that would be this year.
Oh, this year?
I mean, well, the year that we're.
We
We're
don't
levying
have-
for it.
No.
We have very little in construction, maybe 400,000, maybe.
And is most of that residential?
Yes, most of it is residential.
Now, if there's additions and things, is that considered to be new construction? If somebody's improved the, added
Yes.
square footage? So it doesn't just have to be a tear down, it can be
Right.
new construction. And then, one other quick question, or kind of touched on it, do we have any TIF districts, or TIFs in our school district?
We do not.
Okay. All right, so that kind of makes, our situation relatively simple. I mean, after we talk here, it doesn't sound simple at all, but if we had TIFs, it would even be more.
Right.
We'd even be asking more questions. All right, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I appreciate your coming in.
You're welcome.
Questions. Before Fran leaves, is there any other questions anybody has? Thank you. All right, well, now I'd like to get to the 2013 tax levy. Can we have a motion?
I would like to move that we accept the recommendation for the maximum levy of 1.7 CPI for $396,300 increase over the current year levy.
I second that. With the clarification that it's really not a maximum levy, municipal levy.
Right,
It's
well,
not
it's just what it
accurate.
says on the sheet,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
But I support that.
All right.
I second that motion.
All right, Juanita, would you like to call the roll?
Randy Brockway.
No.
Lisa Gaynor. Aye.
We
Dave
want
Clown.
to have any discussion?
Well, does anybody want to, before we call the roll, I'm sorry, does anybody want to have any comments on it?
Yeah, I'll just say, repeat my comments from 2 weeks ago, that I think that in order to keep the, programs and quality of educational programs that we have here in District 96 going, that this is critical. Over time, we're going to have to maintain a fund balance and just keep our financial house in order. It absolutely doesn't say that we're not going to be doing cost cutting and being very fiscally responsible. But I think in order to be fiscally responsible, we also need to make sure that we have revenue.
I mean, I would like to first start by thanking all the people who, from our community, who reached out to us, sent in comments. Most of the comments either lied with a support for a 0% increase or for a full maximum levy. This proposal does not represent the full maximum levy. It's asked for just CPI. So we would forego even the $400,000 of new construction that we could get additional tax revenue, so we would forego that. But I do want to acknowledge the statements that were made and the rationale for seeking a increase in our tax levy were well thought out, they're well rationalized. I'd like to just take a moment for the benefit of the members as well as the benefit for the audience, is to highlight at least one letter that I think really concisely speaks to this. And it says, first off, thank you for serving the community in the capacity that you do. It cannot be an easy task, and your time and thoughtfulness is appreciated. That said, I'm writing to share my opinion regarding the tax levy discussion, which automatically means that I will be in disagreement with some of you. It's clear that cost-cutting measures are necessary to rein in spending for district expenses, and I agree, and it concurs with Art's statements. So no controversy there. We all want to be leaner and a more efficient way of educating. We want a leaner and more efficient way of educating our children. I ask each of you to consider the impact of not asking for the full amount of the levy on this go-around. District enrollment is growing. There are demands to meet, perhaps exceed, the Common Core curriculum. Class sizes are at or near current capacity, with some exceptions already. This new administration seems to understand how to run a school district, not only as a school district, but also as a business, with the best interests of our kids in mind. To hog-tie the administration and the district financially at this point seems short-sighted to me. In no way am I anxious to see my taxes increase, and I can echo that as well, as a taxpayer myself. However, I'm not anxious to leave possible money on the table, to skip the levy and wait for a referendum when it's needed